Okay, so now we're recording. So, before we started, I did want to, so I'm going to start sharing my screen with you all because, where's this thing I want to show you? I'm going to start sharing my screen with you so that I can walk you through a couple of the pieces of it. But first I have to open the thing I want to show you first. So I just wanted to, I don't think I did this yet in this class. Did I do an announcement for the Sustainable Ag course I'm teaching in this fall?
You put it in the notes.
Oh, I put it, like I talked about it in the video last time?
Yeah.
Okay, then I don't need to do that, actually. I can't keep track of where I did it. So I just wanted to tell you guys about that class because I'm super excited about it. And I think that our class, well, it's not one of the prereqs. If you're interested in this class, in our class now, then you'd likely be interested in that class as well. So, okay, that was my only announcement I had. So let's go straight into the actual workshop. So raise your hand if, can you guys all see each other too? Okay, good. So raise your hand if you had a chance to look at the workshop materials already. Okay. And no problem if you didn't have to. So a couple people have, but basically, so this week we are going to do, so this week is about extinction, right? And so next week in class, which is Easter break, the topic is endangered species management. So these topics kind of go together, right? The lecture on Monday was like, what is extinction? How differentiating between background and mass extinction, and thinking about what causes extinction. And then because in our class we like to be focused a lot on actual management and solutions, you're not going to do a workshop where we like model different extinctions. You're going to do in this workshop, you're going to look at how to manage a specific wildlife population so that it doesn't go extinct. And this population is California condors. So the first thing you want to do when you do this workshop is watch the video I posted on there on Moodle. It's basically just a cool summary video of the California condor saga. And California condors, as you'll read in the workshop, has anyone ever seen one or heard of them? So they're the biggest bird in North America, and I haven't personally seen one either, but their wingspan is up to 10 feet, which is huge, and they weigh up to 28 pounds. So they're huge birds, and originally they're this famous story in conservation and endangered species management because they, as you'll read, and you'll see in the video and then read in the paragraph that I do for the intro in the workshop, they went through a combination of things from habitat loss and then poisoning. Their population went down to only 27 individuals in the wild in 1970 something or 1980. It was 1987. And so the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service decided to capture all of the remaining individuals in the wild and bring them into a breeding facility and breed them in captivity and reintroduce them. Now, this is a very extreme plan to deal with an endangered species, right? Because you're taking every individual out of the wild and then you're planning to just have complete control over breeding them and putting them back out into the wild. In this case, it was a huge success. There's currently something like 480 condors alive today, and about 60% of those are back in the wild. And the whole program reached this milestone in 2015 because more condors were born in the wild than died in the wild. So it looks like they're taking off again, like this worked. But some biologists hate this story. Can you think of why?
Maybe because it encourages like messing with natural selection.
That's true. There's definitely genetic bottleneck issues, right? Like all of these individuals are descended in the last 30 years from 27 individuals. It creates that issue. It also creates this idea that like biologists can rescue the species even if there's only like less than 30 left, so don't worry about it. But you guys haven't seen the materials yet, but how much do you think it costs to do that?
Probably a lot of money.
Yeah, it's definitely not like breeding rats in the lab or something. Like it costs millions and millions and millions of dollars. And some conservationists argue that, yeah, this is a really amazing, huge, impressive bird, but there's so many other species that we could help with that money that's all been spent on that one species. So you watched that video on Monday with the two well, I call them students. I don't know if they're students. They're like your age, right? Talking about umbrella species, right? And there's this idea that like if you protect an umbrella species, then you're protecting all the species that live under their umbrella, like their habitat umbrella. So if you protect panda bears, you're actually protecting everything that lives in bamboo forests. But that isn't really necessarily true with the California condor. They do serve an important role in the ecosystem. They eat carrion, right? So scavengers are really important so that everything isn't just rotting on the ground. And they're also, to some degree, predators of small animals. So basically, what I want you to think about as you're going through this workshop, what you're going to be tasked to do is you're going to be in charge of the Condor Recovery Program. And I had previously planned for us to do another skit, like the one that Riley and Tony did the last time, where one of you gets to be the person who's passing the torch to the new Condor Recovery Specialist and have a little discussion about that. But I thought that might be too hard to do on this. Do you think it would be too hard to do? Now that we're here, I think it'd be funny, but I didn't plan for it. So we'll do it the next time one of those comes up. You can read your roles. But the idea of this workshop is, so this Condor Recovery Program where they're breeding condors in captivity and releasing them is still happening. And so the idea is that you've been just named the director of the Condor Recovery Program. And you have to make some management decisions. So like I just said, the condor breeding and release program has been really successful. But one of the reasons why, one of the problems that still happens is something you'll see in the video, which is does anybody know any ranchers? You live on the East Coast, so it's not that likely. No? I lived out west for many years and I got to know a lot of ranchers, and ranchers have issues with predation, right, on their livestock. And it's still legal throughout the range of the California condor to put out poison bait. So essentially, like if you have coyotes taking your calves, you can put out a dead cow and poison it and put it out there, and then it will just poison anything that eats it, which isn't all coyotes, right? It's other species too. So this is like the major thing that's killing the condors. They're scavengers, right? So when they see a dead animal lying out there, they go and eat it, and then they get poisoned, and that wasn't even what the ranchers wanted, right? But it's causing a lot of population decline. So it's like we're spending all this money to raise these condors in captivity, then we're releasing them, and then they're eating poisoned cows meant for other species. So like you'll read in the workshop, your two approaches are, you're going to have to make decisions about, should we continue the breeding program and at what level? And we have another program, which is like paying ranchers to not put out poisoned cattle, like reimbursing them for predator kills instead. How many acres do we need in that program? So in the real life, there's a lot of other variables that go into that, but those are the two that you're going to work with here, and you're actually going to work with a model. So don't let that scare you, because it's not too hard, and I just want to show it to you. So I'm going to share my screen. Here's the actual workshop. So you should read the whole background. There's the condors. See how big they are? Super cool. So a lot of that is kind of what I just described to you. And-
Wait, hold on. I can't see anything. I don't know about
Oh,
anybody
you
else.
can't? Anyone else?
Okay, now I can. I had to like
Yeah.
adjust.
Okay, it might have taken a moment to load up or something.
Yeah.
Okay, so other people, let me know if you also can't see it. Otherwise, I'll assume you can. So your job is so you're the new lead biologist on the Condor Recovery Program, and you have to do one of these programs or do both, which is implementing a program to pay ranchers to not leave poisoned cows out, and keep going with a captive rearing and release program, or do both. So a lot of times with these workshops in class, I noticed that people would struggle because they missed like one key piece that was written above. Don't miss this key piece right here. Every individual added to the population through a captive rearing program costs $5,000. So the questions they're going to ask you, what's the cost of this program? And so you need to remember that each individual costs $5,000. Each condor release costs $5,000. Okay. So now it starts talking about the model, and I have like step-by-step things to do with this model, but it's just an Excel file. So let me share that screen. Now, I think I have to click it differently. Can you guys see an Excel screen or no? Okay, I have to go back and share that separate thing. Okay, here we go. Okay, so here's what the model will look like. Now, yes, this is a mathematical model, but don't let it intimidate you. It's already designed for you. So this is a file on Moodle. You'll open it up and it will look just like this. Now you can see the parameters in there. It's like, this is the initial number of breeding adults that are in the population already, and the initial number of subadults that are not yet at breeding age. Here's the things that you can change. You can change the number of released subadults. You can change the number of years that the captive release program will go on for. And you can change the number of private land acres in poison-free program. Now you know that each one of these captive release subadults cost you how much?
55,000.
5,000.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
$5,000 each one of those. So you don't have to do anything with that here, but basically these are the default settings. So let's run the model and see what happens. Oops, you have to enable editing. Oh, it closed it. Okay. So this is the thing that happens that I want to make sure that you guys see. When you download the file, you have to enable the editing. And then can you see that it says enable content?
Yeah.
You have to enable the content, otherwise it won't run. What that's doing is enabling the extra code that this model has written into Excel. So enable the content, and then click run the population model. So you see all those numbers come up? Don't worry about those numbers. This is the raw output. Do not worry about the raw output. What that is doing is it's just showing you, so the model runs for 50 years. This is showing you what it came up with for each year of those 50 years. Don't worry about it. Go to the output summary. Okay. So what is this showing you? Let me make this smaller. It's pretty cool, actually. So given those default settings, I'll check that chat in 1 second. If you have that many acres in poison-free, actually, let me just check the chat in case some people are not getting this. Oh, you're just saying, are we working in our groups? Yes, I believe so. Yeah, so you guys, well, let me address the groups thing at the end. You don't have to work in your groups. It's just if you want to. So what we see from those default settings is, let's read this together. What's on the x-axis? Can you see?
Yeah. Wait.
The year.
The year. Yeah. That's on the y-axis.
The average number of breeding adults.
That's right. So you can see on this graph that if you have those default settings, if you have this 100 condors out there and you release 2 per year, just 2, for 40 years almost, for 39 years, as long as you have this many numbers of private land acres and poison free, you're looking good, right? Your population's increasing. So let's go back and do something like, what if you had 2 released every year, but you only had 100,000 acres in that program? Did I make that 1 million? No. Then what's going to happen? Ooh, that's not good. A lot more of them are getting poisoned, right? But it's stable. So if you just do everything the same, but you only manage to get 100,000 acres in there, then you're going to get a stable population that never grows. But you only have 100 condors out there. Or sorry, this is breeding adults, so 78 breeding adults. So you'll see when you read the workshop, you'll see what the recovery plan targets actually are, and they're not 78. They're 150. So basically, I would encourage you to, when you go to the workshop, you're going to see that it looks like there's a lot of questions, and they're more than normal, and there are, but most of them are just like, type this into the Excel model. What does that show you? Type this into the Excel model. What does this show you, right? That's what it's basically asking you to do here. So any questions on how to run the Excel piece?
Yeah, I saw Karina put this in the chat, but I had the same thing come up.
Mhm.
When you open the Excel sheet, it says, do you want to enable or disable macros? And then it says macros can contain viruses. So what should we do for that?
If you have to enable them or they won't work. And I get that it's true that in general macros can contain viruses, but this is from the American Museum of Natural History that built this model. And I've used it for a couple of years and it's never had a problem. So I feel it's from a safe source.
Okay.
So if you don't enable the macros, it won't work. And I think it's pretty safe to enable the macros because it's from the American Museum of Natural History.
Okay.
But that's a good question. Did somebody else have a question that I didn't see?
I started the questions, and when I did number 2, it asked like what's the total like cost of it when and new like what is it, the breeding or the captive released. And according to the output summary, it's like 975,000, but I wasn't quite sure how they get that number, so I'm still kind of confused to how like the 5,000 like per released is.
Yeah, actually I didn't realize they give you in the output. So number 2 says, okay, what is the minimum number of captive released individuals required each year to make the average population growth rate approximately equal to 1? So that means a stable population, right? What is the cost of this management action? So in this scenario, we're not having any poison-free habitat, so that's set to 0. Yeah. So you have to play around with the numbers. Like you would put in like, how about if I release 2 condors? How about if I release 10? How about if I release 20? You would look for, and I know I haven't gotten to your exact question yet, but I'm getting there. And you would look for a pattern like this. Number of condor releases given no poison-free habitat would give you a stable population growth. And then as to how much it costs, say that to get a stable population growth, you hypothetically figured out by messing with the model that you need 10 released per year. So you know that they're 5,000 each, so that's $50,000 a year
Mm-hmm.
for 50 years.
Okay.
So it's a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, does that give you the same number as you would get up here? I don't know, because I didn't just run that on here. Let's check to avoid issues later. So say you said, so I just changed it to number of private acres. Everyone's a jerk and everyone's poisoning all their cows. So you just try and release more condors to make up for it. Let's see what happens. Okay, if you release 10, you actually get some growth. But let's compare this number to, so if you release 10 per year for 50 years, that's 500, so 10, that's 500 times 5,000 per one, that's 2.5 million. Why is this cost lower? Pfft, actually, you got me, I don't know. But don't go with that number.
Okay.
Go with the 5,000 per.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to write something about that. I might put this up again with that deleted so it doesn't confuse people. Because
So
I
we'll-
actually,
Sorry.
I don't, oh, go ahead.
So we'll never have to use that total cost number?
Well, I don't like it because it doesn't match what they said in the text that we should take into
Okay.
account. So I think we should just go with, I prefer the exercise being like, you know where it came from because you figured it out rather than like, oh, the Excel said this random number, so that must be what it is. So let's go with calculating it ourselves. It sounds like most of you already downloaded this, but you're also on this class, so you know, so you get that point. But for everyone else, I'll upload one where that's deleted. So the takeaway message there, just to summarize for everybody, is when it's asking you what the cost would be, use the 5,000 per condor, multiply by how many condors, multiply by how many years, not the number it's giving you there, which doesn't match, and I don't know where they got it from, so that makes me not trust it. Because it doesn't have a formula in the Excel sheet. There's one other thing I want to point out to you up in this region that you do need to know, and that's this number here. So that's the growth rate of the population. So I know you haven't had a chance to read the workshop yet, but basically, if a population is growing at a rate below 1, that means it's declining. If it's growing at a rate of 1, it's stable. And if it's growing at a rate of above 1, it's increasing. It says that in the workshop, so don't worry if you didn't memorize what I just said. But this is that growth rate. Lambda is the term that biologists use for growth rate. So when you're checking to see whether you achieved a growth rate of 1, you can look up there to see if it's perfect 1. You can also look down here, right? Because if this is flat, it's 1. You're just keeping the same number of individuals. This graph over here, you don't need to deal with much. It's showing you the population growth rate over years. So that's another place you can get it from. Okay, so just to summarize again, basically the questions are going to ask you a series of things that direct you to mess around with these model parameters to try and figure out what's your best approach as a manager. Do you want to, how much money do you want to spend on releasing captive condors? And how much work do you want to put into getting more private land acres and poison-free programs? After you've messed around with this model and answered all those questions, the last question is basically asking you, what's your recommendation? What should we do? Based on cost and the population you can achieve with the condors, right? So you're gonna have to spend a little time playing around with those. But let's pretend, just to show you one other little experiment, that we had the original number, 300,000 in private land, but we released one captive subadult every year. We still get increase. Okay, let's see. I'm trying to play with like what happens to make them go extinct. All right, that's a slow decline. They're going to go extinct over time. What if you release one per year and you only have 50,000 hectares in the poison-free program? It's just going down a little bit. So you can see here as a manager, like what are my goals really? Like how many, what's going to make them, what's the minimum at which they're actually going to go extinct? We're getting closer and closer to it, right? What if you do nothing? You cancel the program and you don't have much in a poison-free lands. You are going basically to extinction, right? So by playing with this model, you can see that some management needs to be taken even to get a stable population, but you can decide what the combination is, knowing that getting the lands in that poison-free program is much less expensive, but also not as effective as releasing the condors. Okay, so let's take it back to just the group to see if people have questions. Oh, Lucas has a good question in there. So he said, how many breeding condors would it take for condors to be no longer endangered? So what no longer endangered means totally depends on the recovery plan. And the recovery plan for California condors, their goal, and it says that this in your workshop when you read the Word document, the goal is to have 150 breeding pairs in 2 different locations. So 350 breeding pairs, 300, 150 plus 150. So if you as a manager can achieve 300 breeding pairs, then they can be taken off the endangered species list. But you don't even have to have that as your goal. You could say, oh, that's too expensive. We just want to keep a stable population. But the ultimate goal is to get them off the list by having those 300 breeding pairs. Okay, so any questions about that? It's actually fun. It's fun messing around with that model. Thanks. Okay, so just to address the question that some people had said about groups, the whole group thing with the emails I sent out assigning you to your groups as best as I could remember them, that was to just to connect you all so that you can work together if you want to. You have no requirement to work together, but sometimes it's nice to just have like a group chat where you can quickly shoot people questions. It doesn't have to be like a Zoom meeting or something. Whatever you guys want to do, it's totally optional. But yeah, that's it. Okay, so I know some people said that this is the time they also allocate for working on the workshop. So let's draw this to a close so that those folks can go and work on the workshop. And thank you all for showing up. I'm glad you're here. Nice to see you all.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Yeah, so yeah, you're welcome. Good luck with the workshop and have fun doing all your activities this weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Okay, bye y'all.